I've never been in a physical war. I've never been drafted. I've never been to grueling boot camp. And I've never worn army fatigues. I've only read about the war and heard about it from testimonies. I've never experienced being a soldier in an actual physical war. You probably haven't either. However, there is an ongoing war that we are immersed in. The Apostle Paul gives us specific details about this war in Ephesians 6. He says in verse 12 that we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. So if I'm hearing Paul correctly, he's trying to explain how this war that we're immersed in is far different than any earthly wars. It's much stronger and fiercer. So with that said, let me give you maybe a few biblical word pictures that just might resemble this war a little bit. Daniel being thrown into the lion's den, David up against a huge 9-foot giant, and Jehoshaphat leading the Israelite army into battle against other armies that far outnumbered them and were heads stronger than them in strength. And Paul facing off with mobs of haters. So what makes this war so terrible? Well, the Apostle Paul tells us that those that are coming after us are not seen. They are rulers, authorities, mighty powers, and evil spirits. None we can see, but they all work for the prince of darkness, the one who has been against Jesus since the beginning, and the one who has taken many Christians down. That's right, he has stolen joy, peace, confidence, assurance, identity, and faith. A multitude of believers, leaders included, have fallen into his web. They have believed his lies and have left the faith. And some are preaching a false gospel. Satan doesn't spend much time coming after the apathetic believer, the lump on the log, so to speak. Why? Because they're not a threat to him. No, Satan is after the devoted believer. If you're living your life for Christ, then he's hot on your tail. Sometimes I look in my rearview mirror to see a driver so close that if he got any closer, he would be right in my trunk. And he doesn't back down until I move over. But Satan never backs down. He will stay on your tail, intimidating you and looking for the right opportunity to devour you. That's why Paul wrote this passage. That's why we need to suit up. That's why we need to suit up. This isn't just any war. It's big and powerful. But if we wear the right armor, we will be protected and we will win, and Satan will fall. As we look at this passage in Ephesians 6, we mustn't miss verse 13. Paul tells us that we are to put on every piece of God's armor. Now, this is important because Satan is clever and his eyes are all over you. He will find the slightest little crack or the slightest little place where the armor is not, and he will slither in. He will slither in. But if we put on every piece of armor, then it will cover us completely from head to toe, so he cannot get us. Ephesians 6 gives us 8 pieces of armor. So let's look at them quickly. The first piece of armor is strength, and we find that in verse 10, where it says to be strong in the Lord. In other words, we need to be strong, but our strength needs to come from the Lord, not ourselves. When Joshua was about to lead the people of Israel into the promised land, God said to him, "Be strong and courageous." And then he went on to say, "Do not drift from the word of God and to meditate on it day and night." So we learn from Joshua that our strength comes from the word of God. The second piece of armor is the belt of truth. John 14:6 tells us that Jesus is the truth. But we also learn in John 8:44 that Satan is a liar and the father of lies. A belt holds everything together. So we need to put on truth like we would clothes. Put on truth like clothes. Utilize the word of God. Hold it tight. Cling to it. Go deeper into it. Trust in it and use it every single day. Every day. Truth will hold you together. The third piece of armor is the breastplate of righteousness. A breastplate covers our vital organs. So if we strive to live righteously, to do what God says, and to live the way that He tells us to live, then this will protect our vital organs. Satan always goes for the most precious organ, our heart. He knows that our hearts can be easily swayed and fooled, but living rightly will safeguard our hearts from our greatest enemy. The fourth piece of armor is the gospel of peace. In the New Testament, it says that for shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, or the gospel. The gospel is everything that Jesus taught. And since the gospel, or the true gospel, is under attack today, we need to stand on it and not drift from it like so many others have. When the gospel of Jesus Christ wanes in our life, so does our faith. And when our faith wanes, Satan is given a huge way in. The fifth piece of armor is the shield of faith. The shield covered the whole body from head to foot. So our faith protects us from the fiery darts thrown our way by our enemy. Romans 10:17 says that our faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the word of God. So let me say this. The more we spend time poring over the word of God and listening to Him, the stronger our faith will become. And strong faith always creates a strong shield. The sixth piece of armor is the helmet of salvation. Satan's first target is your mind. This is where he plants lies and deceit. So we need to have assurance that we are saved, and that's a good helmet. But it's important that we do a few other things with our mind, like renew our minds daily by replacing lies with truth and rejecting doubts that surface, and training our minds to think like Philippians 4:8 says. Think about things that are true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. So the more that we focus on these things, the stronger our helmet will be at protecting our minds from Satan. And then the seventh and eighth pieces of armor are the sword of the Spirit, and prayer. Believers should always be adept at Bible study and prayer. These are used as both defense and offense. In other words, they are protection for us, they're pieces of armor, and they're also weapons that we can use against the enemy. We are soldiers. A soldier would never go into battle unprotected and unprepared. That would be foolish. Paul saw this spiritual battle every day. He was attacked ruthlessly, and he knew that the devil was coming after God's chosen people. So make sure to suit up. This war is only going to get worse, and we want to make sure that we will be protected and that we will win. God is setting up a strong army, and He's calling each of us. So will you join this army? Will you follow His instructions? Let's go out to the battlefield wearing the divine armor that has been given to us.